Hey everyone, Irene here. Before I get into this question, a reminder that what I am trained in is levels that work with not just shock trauma, chronic stress, but also early trauma, preverbal trauma, in utero trauma, transgenerational trauma. And there's a lot of different systems and modalities that might say this is for this and this is for that. And what we know in this work is that, as Bessel van der Kolk has said, the body keeps the score. The issues are in the tissues. That's another one that people say. This one, though, is about preverbal trauma. And so the question is, how do you identify and release preverbal terror from the body? How do you even get to it? This question is complex because there's no one answer for how you get to it and how you identify and even how you release, because everyone is different. But this is what we need to work with when we know we have preverbal terror. In this case, let's just call it trauma. So just to define, preverbal is anything typically before the age of 3, before we are able to speak. It can also connect to in utero trauma. Clearly, we can't speak when we're in utero. Everything is a sensation. It's not even a feeling. It's not an emotion. It is physiological sensation. It is shocks. It is chronic stress. It is feeling the chemicals that come out of our mother's hormonal releases. It's what she ingests into her body and what we might get chemically that way. We know, for instance, fetal alcohol syndrome is a preverbal trauma. It's an in utero trauma due to excessive exposure to alcohol, as one example. Terror, so the concept of terror is this sort of hybrid of fear and one might even say inescapable attack. So a little one inside a mom who's drinking, or has tons of chemicals coming into her body. This was me, by the way, not alcohol, but toxic chemicals. That little one is in a state of inescapable attack. Just like if you're being held down by a medical professional, by a perpetrator, an attacker, you can't attack. And so you are being terrorized because you cannot emit and exert your protective responses, your self-protective responses to fight, flee, and get the heck out. Now, when it's preverbal, we don't have social engagement. So one tactic when we're trying to get out of a shitty situation with someone, say on the street, is we might try to calm down. We might try to calm them down. Hey, my name is, who are you? What's going on? Are you okay? Can I help you? Obviously, that doesn't always work when someone's out to get us, but it is one element. This is where the Polyvagal theory comes in. Can we socially engage to mitigate this stress? But when it comes to preverbal, typically we can't fight and flee, so we freeze. We go into shutdown. We go into collapse. So we're dealing with essentially a somatic system, a body system that is trapped in survival stress, this fight, flight, the terror, and the freeze, typically. Some people have preverbal trauma and they're not in freeze, they're in hyper alert, they're in hypervigilance. That was my husband's experience, Seth. We've talked about his experience being born prematurely in an incubator in a very violent, emotionally and physically abusive home environment, and that guy never went into freeze. He could go into freeze if it was an intense situation, but his wiring, for whatever reason, kept him in more of a anxiety state, more hypervigilance. I was the freezer of our relationship, or I should say, in my childhood, I went into freeze because of that my in utero trauma, this preverbal trauma to chemicals. But to go back to how do you identify it? So my sense is if someone's asking this question, they know something happened. So we can't necessarily say it's sitting in this organ and it needs this kind of trauma release and this is how we get to it. Because again, the question was, how do you identify, release, and get to it? So there's no answer to how exactly you get to it, but to get to it in a more holistic sense, you have to build capacity. And I sound like a broken record because I say this over and over and over again, but we need to build up our capacity, our nervous system and somatic capacity to be with our body, to sense the internal sensations, what's also called the interoception, what our organs are doing when we're tight and just like we're in that fight, or when we go into collapse, or the ability to notice, oh, I'm having a something come up. I don't know what it is, but something's shifting in my energy state, and I feel hot, or I feel cool, or all of a sudden I feel scared, or I feel like I need to do X, Y, Z. We know this if we start paying attention to hunger cues, temperature cues, fatigue cues, these basic physiological autonomic systems. When we have been brought up in a lot of terror, collapse, trauma, we might not have accurate connection to them. And so one way, so this comes into the answer to this question, one way to get to it is to actually not try to get to the trauma. It's to connect to your body and listen to its biological needs in this moment as an adult on whatever day it is. And do that every day as your homework, essentially, so that you start reconnecting to this internal state. The other thing is we need to connect to the environment, because the environment around us also gives us cues. But if we had this early trauma where the environment wasn't safe, we might not even connect to it because it was something we didn't want to look at or we didn't want to be in. And so part of this journey of healing and getting to these preverbal traumas, the first steps aren't about going into trying to find them. It's about, can we build capacity to be with our body, connect to our body, connect to the environment, and keep going back and forth between these two over and over and over again. Education is also super important. The level of education that I do and teach in my programs gives a person a very strong overview of all of these different states of nervous system physiology, fight, flight, freeze, all of the autonomic nervous system branches, namely the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and all its sub-branches, and also how emotions work, how feelings work, how our stress organs work. So the final thing I'll say is when we are working with gaining this capacity, gaining our interoception, following our biological impulses, as we start to do that, we will start to also, again, this happens in my courses and programs, at the Smart Body, Smart Mind level, that's my 12-week curriculum, we work with the kidney adrenals, we work with the gut-brain interface, we work with the brain stem, we work with the layers of the body, the skin, the fascia, the muscle, the bone. We work with the joints of the body. We work with the various levels of the diaphragms of the body that line up with the Eastern traditions of the chakras. We work with all of these spaces because when we have gone through something terrorizing as an infant or in utero, these spaces and places are either offline and completely not in our awareness, or they might be shut down, or they might be stuck in some kind of sympathetic, adrenalized go, go, go state. In many of us, it cycles between all of these things. And so this is why I can't say this is how you identify, this is how you release, this is how you get into it. Anyone that says this is the protocol for releasing preverbal trauma, run fast, fast, fast away from those people. It's not how it works. It's not that simple. We have histories that are unique. We have capacities that are different age, different way in which we've felt into our organs, different ways in which we can contain intense energy, emotions like anger and rage and disgust. These are things that will come up when we start to deal with preverbal traumas of the horrific, terrorizing nature. I can guarantee you there will be some massive fight flight come out of the system. And if we don't have the map cognitively online to know this could happen, and also we haven't prepared ourselves for that big energy burst, if you want to call it, it can freak us out. We can actually go into more shutdown because we then feel something that is unimaginable. But the reason why it's that big is because something that occurred to us when we were young was so big and so intense that we had to shut down and block it out of our awareness, out of our sensory awareness. Someone said, how do we restart healing process when the mind shuts off to it? That shows that we're doing too much too soon. So we need to keep our cognitive brain online. It doesn't mean we're thinking and scrutinizing what's occurring, but this goes back to building capacity, following impulse, being able to connect to this environment, follow our thoughts, see when we're starting to get into the clouds and we're about to bypass out of our body. If the work we're doing, whether it's with a practitioner or through some course, isn't addressing the need to go slow and titrate and take time, then they're not doing their due diligence, and they're ethically not helping you move through the process of reintegrating and rewiring at these very gentle, subtle, foundational ways. And the only way we know the difference is if you try a different approach. If we try a different approach. Preverbal trauma, I have learned through the work of Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell. One is called Somatic Practice. One is called Somatic Resilience and Regulation. You won't find, they've got one book called Nurturing Resilience, but you won't find this plastered all over the internet. It's a fairly new body of work, and by new I mean the last sort of 25 years. And it works at this level with all the things I've just said, working with the kidneys, the adrenals, the gut, the brainstem, the layers of the body, the diaphragms of the body, the joint spaces of the body. It's, again, what I teach in Smart Body, Smart Mind, or it's what you might work with a practitioner with if you go to someone who has been trained in their methodologies. This is not just somatic exercises. It is a very unique branch that has been branched off of somatic experiencing. Both Kathy and Steve are also somatic experiencing practitioners. They're my colleagues. And as far as I've seen, that level of work, working with these stress organs, is what we must get to work with preverbal trauma. But to get there, we need to go through the steps of learning the education, building capacity, building connection to the environment, orienting, and just nailing that down so well so that we can go into these deeper organs and not get freaked out when we start to feel what is stored in there. And let me tell you, there can be a lot stored in there, but when we've done the work to build up capacity and foundation, what we feel is less intense because we've primed ourselves for it. It's like climbing a mountain. If you've never walked a day in your life, it's a bit extreme, but if you've never exercised specifically and someone says, hey, we're going to go climb out Mount Kilimanjaro, come on, let's do it. That could be the death of someone because they can't deal with the altitude, their muscles don't know what to do, their heart isn't in good capacity to output that much exertion. Their lungs don't have the capacity, the joints don't have the capacity, all these things, and then the system will probably break down if they're not used to that. And that's why when people go on these big walks, they train for years before they do that. So think of working with preverbal trauma, preverbal horror in the same way. It can completely be done. I've done this work. I know so many people who have done it. My students have done it. The key is titrating, building capacity, learning how to get connected to your internal environment and the external environment and not going into more shutdown or collapse. I hope this answers that question.